this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I am joined with Joe748 and our guest Phantom, who is a former pit boss from a casino I've heard of a number of times. Phantom, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Joe, how are you doing?
Good. Can't wait to hear all the secrets.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. Phantom, do you mind sharing kind of how you got into Advantage Play before working for the casinos? Is that right?
I did, and that was kind of my entry into working for the casinos for approximately 10 years or so. I would say I started out probably about 25 years ago dabbling in blackjack and starting to learn a little bit about card counting, but I was by no means anywhere near an expert at that point. Actually remember vividly my first backoff ever was 2006 at the Paris in Vegas. And that kind of led me to start trying to build my skill level a little bit beyond that. So I was actually backroomed before I ever knew what backrooming was, or that it really shouldn't be done. And then maybe 5 years after that, I ended up switching careers completely from what I was used to doing and trained to do, just to get into the casino industry. And I actually started out as a dealer for maybe a year or so. And after my supervisors, managers found out what I could do for them, I quickly became a suit and, moved up the ranks. And, very quickly it was my job to focus on advantage players, if you would. That's the proper term. But to identify and basically, remove, as I'm sure you're both very familiar with. So that's pretty much how I got into it. But I must say I've been back out for about a year and back into my previous career. So I'm just looking to help everybody out, and I'm going back on the other side now.
Right on. Welcome back to the good guys.
Going back to the good side.
So what's the typical casino employee's opinion of an advantage player?
Their typical view or opinion, I would say, especially upper management, really frowns on advantage players. They're out to protect. Of course, they're out to protect their bankroll. They're out to make their their numbers, their hold percentages, and they're extremely afraid of this play. Although I would say 95% of them do not understand it. They don't really understand the ups and downs, and that person's not going to really beat you every time, or that they may not be as skilled as they think most APs are.
So do you think that the typical casino manager doesn't really understand the actual cost threat of an AP? They just are afraid of this theoretical threat?
That is a very true statement. They are not aware of the guy that's going a bet spread of 10 to 100 on you. They don't realize how little of a threat he is to you.
What are they thinking that that kind of, let's say take that kind of a player, for example, though 10 to 100, what do they think they're walking away with on average? Do they see them come in, play, and they're this guy's going to take 10,000 a day, or?
They want to stop it before it gets anywhere near that. I don't care if it's a few hundred, but they just don't want to lose is the bottom line, and they know that's a true threat to their their hold. Although they don't. I would say 95% of them don't understand what's involved. that's where I worked for so many years. It was my job to basically make the calls, and I would decide whether you were allowed to continue playing or not. I was never actually the one to come over and talk to you because I didn't want anybody knowing who I was, or you understand, keep me out of it basically. And some of those calls may have been on, let's say, Joe, you come in on grave shift, 6 o'clock in the morning and play for a couple hours. There may not be anybody there that's capable of even watching you, but they may record your play. And when I go in, I may be watching your play, and then of course you're going to have your picture taken and all that, and we'll be looking for you next time you come in. So you may get away with it here and there. It depends on, I guess, the property you're at, but.
So when they came to you with like a report, for example, would you watch the video of every single suspected AP, or like what was
anybody that was suspected of being an AP was pretty much my task to watch and to fill out a report on. And I could tell you it's just funny because when I would watch some saved play, and I'm sure you guys have seen some pretty fast dealers being out there, but I always watch the saved play at double normal speed. So, it's like putting your DVR in double speed and getting a 15-minute shoot done in 7.5 minutes. So, I was just looking to go through them very quickly, and I didn't have anybody even in my surveillance teams that could keep up with me, hardly even at single speed.
So the surveillance operators were not
they weren't
trained.
up to par, as I would say.
So what percentage of pit bosses could accurately keep the count, or knew what to look for, like bet fluctuations, stuff like that?
Oh, at the property I was at, and I don't think I mentioned, but I was actually at 2 different properties over my years as a supervisor. But I would say less than 5% could really keep an accurate count and make what I call a good judgment call. Because to me, if you don't make the right decisions, you don't have the right bet spread, then go on playing. So that was my theory. I would give you the benefit of the doubt until you basically proved to me that you knew what the count was and you were moving your money up and down or bowing out of a negative shoe or going wide. I mean, there's all kinds of tells that as soon as you show me enough of those, then I know 100%. But if you don't have the bet spread, then you can keep on playing.
So the rest of the players, was it more that you were just, or the rest of the pit bosses, I mean, they're just looking for, this guy looks like a card counter, like he's moving his bets, and so then they would call surveillance or something like that?
They would, and I'm sure you've seen the typical pit boss that likes to stand next to the table with their arms crossed and they're intensely watching you. It may be just because you're high action. I mean, maybe you're playing $500 hands. They just may be watching a new dealer, so you may not even necessarily be getting any heat at that point. But the just because they're watching you doesn't mean that they're capable of making a judgment call. But yeah, they may call it in to have it saved for later, to have somebody like me review it and make the final call.
Did you ever have any players where it's like, okay, yes, they're definitely counting, but they're just not good enough, or they're making some mistakes that make them a losing player? Like, was there anything like that?
I've had a couple that I knew they were aware of the counts, so they just wouldn't spread their money. Like they would be, say, at a $10 table, they might go to $50, but that was the max you would ever see out of them. And I would just let them play. I mean, we know a 5 times bet spread on a 8 deck game is not enough, big enough spread to be a threat.
Yeah. So, one of the things you said a few minutes ago, you said that they would record it and you would watch it later. I was thinking about that, this is why I tell people, if playing conditions are good, keep playing.
Just play your game is my advice. Yeah. Just keep playing your game. And I'll tell you, I've played very little since I've been working in the industry, only because, of having other relationships. So I'm just now starting to get back into it. But I will tell you, just keep playing your game. If that pit boss or whoever comes over and wants to stand next to the table and cross their arms and stare at you, start a conversation up with them. Ask them, how's it going? Or ask them, what's open to get something to eat? Or, hey, can you call a waitress? I need a drink. Or, see if they'll walk away from the table to go pick up the phone and call for a waitress or something.
Yeah, because it could be, you could say, well, I'm going to keep sessions super short, well, that's fine. But otherwise, if you've played for a couple hours and there's no heat, it could just be that the person like you at that casino, they're not on that shift, and they're going to evaluate your play before, because some people, it's like, okay, I played 2 hours, I'm going to leave, I'll come back tomorrow. Well, they might evaluate your play and you're toast tomorrow, but you could have played another 6 hours straight.
Yes, until you get that tap on the shoulder, then I would just encourage everybody to just keep playing your game, and of course try to make it look as innocent as possible. I mean, carry on conversations with the dealer, the pit people, maybe even others at the table. Make comments, or you have to not look the part is the hardest thing.
Totally. That's good. Good advice, straight from the source. So what are the triggers that might get them to call surveillance? Like, if a dollar amount or betting amount or size of bet spread, is there anything like that people should know? Okay, this is what's going to get the call up to surveillance, or at least in your properties.
Right. So, as far as that goes, if you, of course, you want as much time as you can get on the table without getting any heat at all. So you naturally don't want to the first thing is never do a huge buy-in. If you're playing even a $25 game, I wouldn't buy in for more than $300 to $500 max on a $25 game, because it just, if you go past a certain point, every casino is going to have their sheet where, okay, Joe just bought in for $2,000, so that's our limit. Now I got to let the shift manager know, and everybody knows Joe's in for $2,000 out of his pocket when he just sat down, and now he's playing quarters. So why did he buy in for that much? That's going to put you under scrutiny right away. So, first thing is never do a huge buy-in, and I think it's always best to act like you're the typical gambler. And if the count gets good, and you want to throw it in, you're chasing your money. Like, oh, I'm losing, and I'm going to whip out some more cash and buy in again, and that just looks like the typical gambler, instead of doing the huge buy-in. The other thing to keep off the radar, I would say, is if you do start winning, and this is something I've learned to do over the years too, is keep what you can off of the table, and squirrel your chips away and leave only enough on the table to really play your game with. So if you've got another player that's playing black chips at the table and you can get away with squirreling a couple thousand in your pocket, the floor person's not paying attention. They have to account for those chips. Who's got them? And if they don't know, they can only guess. But if they're sitting right in front of you, they know that you've got 4,000 in black sitting in front of you. So squirrel your chips away is another good piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because I don't think there's like no reason to have a bunch of chips out in front of you.
Red flag.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So after like a counter does get caught, how long typically does it take for the casino to kind of forget that they were there? Are we talking like 2 weeks, 2 months, a year? Like,
you may be forgotten in a day or two. No, at least where I was, nobody really seemed to remember what anybody looked like or what happened, but I just had this crazy, memory where I just seemed to remember everybody, and I could walk in and be like, oh, there's Colin again. He was asked to leave like 9 months ago, and sure enough, there's his picture in the book, and but he's sitting there playing because nobody remembers him. But I would say you're really not remembered that often unless you've been backed off multiple times at the same property and become a problem. Then I would say you're more going to be looked for directly.
And that seems like kind of the similar thing of the person that backed you off last time might have to be there. Otherwise, if they're not on that shift, there might be no one there that remembers.
There will be no one there. Just play your game like it never happened.
And I want to go back to what you're saying about buying in, because this is something that we always practiced, which it's, I'm just confirming what you said, but we always taught our players to buy in just as much as you need to. And then if you have to buy in more, and I know that can slow the game down to keep buying in, but, there's no reason for the casino to know that you brought more money with you than you need to buy in with. And that's kind of how gamblers are. They're not assuming they're going to lose. They're assuming, they're going to fire. So I always taught people, buy in a couple big bets. So if your top bet is, 2 spots of $300, well, buy in 600, and, don't buy in more than that, even though you might be buying in for another 600 in a few minutes, because it looks odd to be buying in, and you're kind of confirming it. Not just that it doesn't look odd, but that might trigger, hey, I got to let everyone else above the chain of command know about this guy.
Right, and depending on the size of the property, they may have a very low, threshold for what the buy-in is before they have to let the, the shift manager or whatever, somebody up higher up with the food chain know that, Colin's in for 2,000 right out of the box.
Probably.
So it's you don't want to trigger that right away.
Yeah, well, I'll deal with it. I'll buy in more when I need to.
Right.
I'm not going to be afraid of it. But yeah, why bring more scrutiny until you actually need to? That's good. So one of the things when we talked on the phone the other week, you were saying that you guys would share information with other casinos in your area. How far did those flyers go when you would send it out, or the bolo, or whatever you guys called it?
Yeah, I would say probably about a 2-hour driving range is a good estimate when there's like a concentration of casinos in your area. Of course, if I was thinking Vegas, I would think the entire area everybody's going to get it right away. But those flyers are your picture, your car that you appeared in, whoever you walked in the door with or walked out the door with, everybody's going to be sent down the line well before you have a chance to get to the next place. That's just something that you've got to expect. So if you're in an area where there's a concentration and you want to go to another property, and I don't know how you normally would advise this, but I would advise, if you really want to get some time in, bring a complete change of clothes. So even if you didn't get heat and you don't think you got caught, I would still change my lookup before I went to another property in the area.
Yeah, I think that's valid.
I always wondered this, like, let's say you have 10 casinos or so that are within that 2-hour drive. Was there some kind of like agreed upon meeting of all of them where they're like, let's all be in this email thread together and share AP info? Or is it more of like a general process where you just upload it to biometric?
No, it's basically a thread where everybody's sharing, everybody's got everybody's emails and it's all just blasted out. Yeah.
And is it all suspected APs, like this guy's betting 10 to 100, beware?
It would be, for me to send you out, I would have to have 100% been convinced that you were an AP, whether I had the chance to back you off or not. Like I said, it may have happened on another shift and you may have got away with playing for 6 hours and left the property, and I may not see the video for a day or two until I would get in and see it. So, but when I would, then of course that information is going to travel on. So that's why I would just again encourage you, just play your game and don't be scared.
Yeah. That's. I mean, it's really good hearing it from someone that's worked on the other side, because we could tell people, hey, don't be scared, but to hear you saying it, I think maybe we'll have a little bit more power. But when you got whatever, that email thread or a flyer from another casino, how far out did those come from?
Again, I would say about a 2-hour range, maybe driving distance, maybe 120 miles, maybe.
Cool.
So it's a pretty good network. And of course, if you go into a a nationwide property like Harrah's, for example, you're gonna be in their database all over the country. So
yeah,
using facial recognition or whatever, they're gonna have you in their database.
It's probably good for people listening to know that it's not all regions that do this. There are plenty of places that I've gone to. I get backed off from one casino, and the casino next door, doesn't get the memo.
They may not. Yeah, they may not do that, but I think it would depend on the size, basically.
So when you would back someone off, was it like standard procedure to always ask for ID from the player?
And again, I wasn't the person physically backing you off, but typically the security, along with maybe a shift manager or somebody on that line, would ask for ID. Always ask for ID, because you always want to know who you're dealing with. I would say very rarely, like less than 5% of the time, would we ever know who you were beforehand. But it's amazing that the number of people that just offer their ID, I would say, was greater than 50% are willing to give up their ID, which I'm going to advise you, do not give up your ID. Just as far as being an AP, and they want to accuse you of being an AP, and they let you know, you're basically no longer welcome here and you're done. Is to just quietly bow out and grab your chips, and you can go to the cage if you want, or if you feel like it's safe. But if you think there's going to be a problem, then I would just exit and worry about that later. That would be my advice. Never give your ID up. You don't want them to know who you are.
Very good advice. Unfortunately, a lot of, especially new people, they just get intimidated and they do it. But very good advice for people to hear.
And of course, like I said, the first time I ever got backed off was 2006, and at the Paris, and I was actually staying there on a 5-night comp. So it was the last day of my 5-night comp.
Oh, nice.
So they knew who I was, but.
Let's say somebody shows up to your casino and they're spreading really big, and sometimes it seems correlated with accounts, sometimes not. Like, what are some of the things that were just like immediately make you write them off as like a winning player? Someone with a huge spread that may or may not be counting. You're not really sure.
I mean, of course, some people like to do the big spread and put big hands out if as cover play. I don't really believe in cover play. I believe in a little bit of cover play, but not to the point of risking your bank for it. I typically would probably let them continue to play. And then that brings to mind thinking about, well, are they, the ace tracking or, whatever. But, depending on what shuffle you're using, that may or may not be possible.
Is that something that you guys discussed, your casino? Like, okay, this isn't a trackable shuffle or this is exploitable, but we're going to use it anyway because it saves time? Or do you have any idea how those decisions are made?
Actually, I was very much a part of the decision of getting our shuffle changed to one that was not or less trackable.
Was it because some people were beaten up on the shuffle?
I don't know if that was the reason. I kind of brought it up as the shuffle we had originally was I would consider it very trackable. It was very basic shuffle. But then I later got them onto another shuffle which was not trackable, and also, and if I tell you this part, you'll know where I got it from. Is I believe in cutting off a half a deck off the end of an 8-deck shoe. So I'm not, most of your old time Vegas, Atlantic City type supervisors want to cut 2 to 3 decks off of an 8-deck shoe. But my whole theory was you have to remember at the time I'm working for the casino. So how does the casino make their, their money is it's all time and motion. So I need to get as many hands as I can out to Colin in the hour that he's going to be here to play. So I don't want to be wasting my time shuffling by cutting through.
Well,
so we actually went to cutting like a half a deck off the end of an 8-deck shoe. And I figure, people opposed it, but my theory was, okay, let me let you get that deep into the shoe. And I want to see really, what do you have? Like, what's your skill level? Like, are you really going to show me your bet spread when you get to a true +5 and there's a deck left?
That's because you were thinking like an AP, and the rest of the casino was. Yeah, they're just scared, and so they're cutting off, their nose to spite their face. They're costing themselves money because they're scared of the 0.1% that could actually possibly pose a threat.
Just not on that level where they're capable of beating them, but they were afraid.
Was there ever any sort of cover that threw you off, and then later, maybe you let them keep playing? You're like, oh, actually, they are, they are playing with the advantage.
That's a good question, but I would say no. I would think no one ever got one over on me like that. I had many, I would say many, and in 10 years, I would say 10 to 20 people wonder how they got caught so fast. And a lot of it is just the things that I'm saying is, leaving your money on the table and doing the big bet spread, or, the AP always wants to sit in seat 1 or seat 6 and, just looking like an AP. It's you're sitting there, they're concentrating, staring at the cards. I mean, we even had people that would move their lips with the count, trying to count. They would be talking to themselves, really. It was hilarious at sometimes. Yeah. But
of all the counters, what's the percentage of people who are kind of like that, who had that sort of eyes down on the table?
I would say more than half the people are just too intense and staring at the table and trying to watch every card. I mean, I like that, I got to the point where I would sit and carry on conversations with people, and, you can hear the cards coming out. So you don't look at them till they all come out anyway. and you may just glance and say, okay, the dealer's got a 6 up, nobody's going to take a hit and nobody's going to bust. So I'm not even going to watch people as they take a couple hits. I'm just going to look at it all as the dealer's doing their pay and takes and just not pay attention. And that's how I would catch a lot of people, because they would think I'm standing there and I'm not looking at the cards like they're looking at the cards. But yeah, I was to the point where I didn't need to stare at the cards. I could sit there and talk to you. If you were somebody I knew, I could sit there and talk to you, like how's the wife and kids doing, what's new, and I'd still be running the table down while I'm sitting there talking to, another player that I may be very familiar with while I'm watching somebody else. And they just have no idea that they're being run down while I'm standing there.
Have you ever had a situation where you had, definitely had a winning player in there, but they were tipping like way too much to the point where they don't even have an edge anymore?
I would say no, not the ones that I run across. Like most APs would tip little, if any.
Mm-hmm. Like what would be enough?
Pretty much my experience.
Yeah, like what would be the amount where it would be like, okay, yes, they're definitely counting, they're accurate, they're a perfect player, but they're spending, like, how much tip is enough for you to be like, well, just let them keep playing, like it's worth having them here for the tipping?
That's a tough. I mean, if let's say you're doing a $500 max bet and you threw, typically you throw a bet up for the dealer. They're not going to you usually just won't throw money at the dealer. They would bet for the dealer. But I mean, even a quarter. I mean, it wouldn't matter if you were tipping the dealer $100. To me, when I was doing it, if you were an AP, you're an AP. I don't care if you tipped the dealer the whole amount you won. So for me, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Well, think of it from the casino's perspective. Card counter could be tipping away their edge, but they're giving it to the dealer. They're taking the casino's money and giving it to the deal. Like the casino still wants to get rid of you.
Correct.
What's of all the black chippers that are in the room, not APs, which is regular gamblers, like what percentage of them like were bad tippers or didn't really tip at all?
The black chip players were usually really good tippers. I mean, they were the ones tipping, betting red chips for the dealer, sometimes betting a green chip for the dealer on top of a $500 or plus bet. They're great for the dealer. If you're making your living being a dealer, then you really want that kind of a player. But again, I wouldn't, if they were an AP and they were tipping too much, they should know not to tip that much. But I would still back them off, as you would say.
Would you consider it? Is it a red flag to you, somebody playing black or table max and not tipping at all? Or do you just chalk it up to, the person's just cheap or whatever?
No, because I would just chalk it up to they're just being cheap, and some you get $10 players that are the same way, that some people just don't tip. It's that's just the way they figure the casino should be paying the dealers. And in fact, most casino dealers, unless if it's not a complete go for your own tips, they're making very little money hourly from the casino. So
yeah, I think it's just like important because we get this question a lot at a lot of boot camps and stuff like that, where people think, if I continuously tip, $10, through.
Yeah, I could tell you the way I would do it when I was going out and playing more often. I would typically tip when the count was, the true count was very high, and I would put and not nickels, but I would put dollars across the whole table for the dealer. So that was the extent of my tipping, only because I kind of felt obligated, because a lot of my friends were dealers, and there's just kind of there was still a little bit of a connection there. It's like I didn't want to waste the tip, so I would wait till they had an advantage, and I would put $1 across the table on everybody's bet for the dealer.
That's creative. So how you, not for you, but just to the general casino employee, how suspicious do you think it is when a player sits out?
That's an excellent thing right there. That is a huge no-no. That will get you caught just as fast as leaving too much money on the table if you're winning, because the dealer is going to complain that you're tying up their seat and you're not tipping, and you quit playing for some reason and they don't know why, but they'll bring it to supervisor's attention. So I would, again, I don't know what you guys, teach, but I would recommend, for the most part, playing through the rough spots and just use your index plays and, play it to the best of your ability, even though you've got a minimum bet up. And this brings up another thing with cover play. So even though, let's say I'm down to, I got a true -4 and I'm still playing and I should be getting up and not playing the rest of the shoe, but if I play through it at a true -4, that shoe now looks like a Spanish shoe to me, because now I'm at true -4. So I'm going to hit every 12, every 13 that comes out. And, if I hit 13 with a 6 up, and I got a true -5, or, people are going to think you're stupid, but I mean, I'm just trying to survive and, get through it. So instead of hopping up, because getting up and hopping up is just so, it's so much of a tell. It's not good, because usually the ones that get up, they'll get up. They won't play the shoe. They'll stand close enough to watch, and they'll jump back in the beginning of the next shoe, but then they'll be on their phone, either texting or calling somebody, but then they're very aware of what's going on. They're right back in with a base bet at the beginning of the next shoe, which is another, telltale sign.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think, to your point, there have been plenty of times where the best thing to do is to play through. Maybe it's the only table and I'm heads up. And my favorite index play is on a hit 17 game, hitting a hard 17 against an ace. It's at true -4. And you just look like the biggest idiot hitting a hard 17.
Not when you pull the 40.
Yeah. But, I think that what people need to evaluate is, some people, their bankroll, they just can't afford to do it, and you need to know that. You need to know with the betting software, if you can afford to play through the whole shoe, and if you can't, don't look like an amateur. Don't do it what, Phantom's saying, and hover at the table and watch every card and wait, it's back to a 0, I'm going to jump back in. Like, actually leave the table.
If you have to go to the bathroom, maybe you have a bad bladder or something. Actually, walk into the bathroom and come back. Don't hover near the table.
And if possible, go to a different table. That looks natural. Like, I don't want to play this table anymore for whatever reason. Go to a different table.
I would do that. I'd just be like, I just can't win at this table. I'm gonna go check out, this other table. But then again, that's another one of the telltale signs too. You don't want to. Yeah, I caught several people also where they would jump tables, but they only jump when the guy next door is right at a fresh shuffle.
Yeah.
And you could tell by watching them that they're watching for fresh shuffle so I can bail and go somewhere else. So if you're going to move tables, say there's, you might have 10, 15 hands left in the other shoe. I would advise, if you really don't want to bring any suspicion on yourself, go over to the other table, play table minimum, and just play basic strategy until you get through the rest of the shoe. Don't wait. I mean, you can wait for a new shoe, but I'm just saying it's more of a tell if you're going to keep waiting for new shoes. So just hop in, and I would just hop in and play basic strategy and get through the shoe. I mean, what are you going to lose? I mean, you're maybe at a 0.5% disadvantage.
Yeah.
No big deal.
That makes sense. You got 2 decks left. You change tables. You can just play through the 2 decks at a small disadvantage. But I'd also say, Phantom, you're smarter than the average casino personnel. So what stands out to you probably doesn't stand out to everybody.
Right. They haven't. Yeah. Most. I would say 99% of the supervisors are in my position, or wherever they were in a position that I'm in. just they're not going to think like me because they've never been on the other side. So fortunately, I've been both.
I remember jumping to another table and I overheard the pit bosses say something like, "Oh, he like left that table. Was that a really positive count?" I was like, "No, like they just counted wrong. Like it wasn't."
That happens too. Again, they just you can't assume that just because they're in that position that they're capable of analyzing your play properly.
So I know at your properties you were the guy responsible for getting a card counter backed off, but in your experience, do you know if it's more often surveillance or the pit?
As far as that, and again, I made a lot of friends in 10 years at different properties in the area and stuff. So as far as the pit versus surveillance, I'm going to say that very rarely would you get picked up by surveillance, especially in a medium to larger size casino, because they just can't watch everything, and run a shoe down out of the blue until they get a trigger. So if they say, hey, the guy with the purple polo and the baseball cap on just bought him for $2,000 on BJA083, that may trigger a phone call for them now they're going to watch you. But for surveillance to just blindly catch you, I'm going to say is very rare. You're really going to need to do one of those triggers to bring, you're basically bringing heat on yourself. Otherwise, the pit personnel, the shift manager, whatever it may be, they've got other things going on, and you're really not a priority and until you say, hey, look at me, I just bought in for $2,000, or I just went from 25 to 2 hands of 500. That would be my advice or take on that.
So speaking of betting 2 spots of 500, how much of a red flag is it when someone's betting black or table max without a player's card?
That's not playing without a player's card for me really wasn't that big of a deal, because I just felt like most people that would play black chips, I would say more than 50%, they just want to be anonymous. They just have money and they just want to play and have fun. So it really wouldn't trigger anything just because you don't have a card.
That's good to hear. We've heard a lot of different advice or thoughts on that. Some people are like, oh, you have to use a card. It's the biggest red flag. But, if you're Joe748 or Colin Jones, you don't want to be playing with a player's card. And so it's good to hear it's not the biggest red flag.
Definitely not.
Like during backoff, like I think all of us have had a situation where, it's just a really bad night for us. We get backed off and, it might be a little rude to the staff during the back off. Does that affect do casinos want to get more revenge and send your flyer out to more places if you were, let's say a little bit too rude during a back off? Or
I don't think it's gonna get you any more famous as far as being flyered quicker or to more places. I think that network is already established, and you're going to be flyered wherever you were going to be flyered, whether you quietly left or didn't quietly leave. Again, the best thing is to just quietly bow out and I know, people do have bad days, bad nights. You may be down many thousands, and you may be the best AP there is and be down, 5,000-10,000. I'm sure you guys have been down more than that, but I've read the stories. But the most important thing is to just try to get out without causing a scene, I would say.
Now I'm wondering, is there some backoff that Joe has in mind, or maybe you?
Yeah,
Did you experience something
where Phantom was working one time.
It might have been me too. You know,
I've always just been curious. Like, I don't like to be rude in general, and in that situation. But it's just like I've just always wondered in the back of my head, like if I just lost my cool, like would it make it worse? Like, do they have a personal vendetta, or is it just sort of standard procedure?
No, it may trigger a visit by the police, though, and versus just the security of the casino. You don't want to get to the official police involved at that point because you're getting out of hand or something.
Well, I know some of Tommy Hyland's best advice is to be forgettable, and if you're making a scene, you're definitely not being forgettable.
Correct. Yeah, the less you make a scene and you just quietly leave, they're going to forget about you more.
Would you have happened to know like anyone who worked at that? I believe it was Rhode Island, that state where when they back you off, basically it's an immediate trespass, and they have to have the police there to see through the back off.
I personally have never been to Rhode Island. I know people that went to that property, but I have not had conversations with them since they've been there.
All right, cool. But yeah, I just wanted to know your
with that, but yeah,
your take is like previously casino management. Like, I just feel like that's so much overkill. It's just like a waste of time on the police departments.
I believe so too.
This guy's using their brain while playing. Let's get the police here.
Yeah, that's That's a whole nother subject, I believe.
So do you ever have you ever seen any just high roller gamblers splitting tens?
I would not that I can recall. I mean, even your local players that play table minimum all day long, or the grandma who's 70 years old that just likes to play, knows you don't split tens, and even the really drunk high rollers, I rarely would see anybody split tens. So I have however caught AP splitting tens by that telltale sign, but by then it was it was already done and gone, and they were probably 3 states away by the time I saw the video.
What about insurance? Do you ever see high rollers like buying insurance when they have a big bet out, or?
They always buy insurance, no matter what. They just love insurance.
Wow, that surprises me. Nice.
Yeah, the high roller that's not an AP loves insurance.
Going back to the splitting tens thing, I wonder how much it's regional. I think there's some, especially in my experience in the East Coast, players seem to be a little bit smarter. Not necessarily like advanced player smarter, but seem to know basic strategy a little bit better. And there are some places I've been where I have seen people betting purple and splitting tens, during a terrible count. I've seen a guy betting black and doubling hard 15s, and just some terrible decisions.
Because they can.
Yeah, but I wonder if any of that's geographical or not.
It's not good for your bankroll.
Sorry, did you ever so it sounds like at your property it was sort of like you kind of evaluating the play and then making the call, but was it ever a situation where it's like you relied on the databases and the pick, not a flyer, but just like this unknown shows up, let's run his face through the database and see what we get, and then looks like we got a match?
That was very rare. I mean, I had some heads up that people were coming, that people were in the area and, maybe stopping in or whatnot. So, once I saw their picture, that's pretty much it. I just, if I saw Joe's picture and talked to me 6 years later, I would know there's Joe again. And I think, I don't know if I should go off on a tangent with that, but I think I told Colin I ran into a player a few months back that actually I had backed off about 6 years ago, and recognized him, and we had a great conversation. We actually got a chance to play at the same table. So that was really strange incident. But after I reminded him of the incident, he remembered me.
So you ran into him at a different property.
At a different property that was like probably close to 1,000 miles from my home.
Oh, funny. That's funny.
Colin, should I put my video on and see if he remembers me?
Yeah, that would be pretty fun. Any
we can do that later. I may have your picture here. No.
Any favorite backoff story or players you've evaluated, like ridiculous acts or cover or anything come to mind?
As far as ridiculous acts, I don't know, but me and a couple of my friends have developed some pretty good acts. But I don't know, another strange, we were talking about splitting tens earlier. So I'll tell you about, I had the opportunity to review play after it happened because a shift manager had noted that, and this was a female AP, had jumped in near the end of the shoe with a $500 bet and ended up splitting tens, ended up winning both hands, and then left. But they did save the play, and I watched it later, like a day or two later. And the shift manager says, well, I don't think anything's going on. I just wanted to save it, and I'm watching the video, and of course, from the beginning of the shoe, even though they didn't jump in towards the end, but the person was standing maybe 6 to 8 feet off the table and ran the entire shoe down. And got, I forget what the count was, but it was a very high, positive count, and just hops right in there with 500 and splits the tens like they should, and caught the cards and won both hands and went on their merry way and left. And that was it. They never got backed off, but if I saw that person today, I still remember what they looked like, though.
That's pretty crazy. If they waited till a true 4 or something to jump in, that's a lot of EV they left on the table waiting for that good count to just play a hand.
So I don't know why some people think like that. I actually have a friend that I trained years ago, and he likes to do the same thing. He likes to wait till at least a true +4 before he'll jump in.
That's crazy.
And then he likes to jump in with close to table max.
Yeah, you just don't get very many, bets per hour, so you can't make much money that way.
No, but he's very patient.
I think it feels like for some people they might have the impression, they think that like, oh, if I waited a true 4 or 5, then my risk will be less. Like they think that the higher the true count, the lower the chances are of losing the amount, like as often or something. Like, but it's not the case.
Right.
That's
right.
Any just memorable stories from your time working at the casino?
Let's see. As far as a memorable story, I'll go back to when I first started. Like I said, I was a dealer, so I dealt for maybe a year before I got promoted, and they realized what I was capable of doing for them. I was, and again, I guess I could say never rule out the dealers running you down, because I was the dealer that was running you down as I'm dealing the cards, and I'm talking to you, and I'm calling my game like any good dealer would do, as I'm going around the table, 16, sir, 18, 12, and I'm asking Colin, how's the kids doing? And, and then I'm in the back of my head, like, okay, I got a running, +7 right now. And I'm just like running the table down as I'm dealing. And I actually had a guy that was doing maybe a 10 to 200 bet spread on my table one night. And I brought it to my shift manager's attention and told them exactly what happened. They thought I was crazy. Then I found out later that they went back a day or two later after that and reviewed the videos and found out that, yes, I was correct. This person was an EP. Now it's, 3, 4, or 5 days later. It's too late. They're gone. They took your money. Then they came back to me and confirmed that yes, you were correct. So that was when I pretty much got my start moving away from dealing.
There was a story way back in the day. There was a casino that we played a ton, and this was Ben, who I played with initially and ran teams with. He had a dealer say to him, "Hey Ben, the count's 10." And Ben said, "The running count or the true count?" And he said, "What? What's that?" It's like, okay, the dealer claims he can count, but I don't know if I can trust anything he's saying.
Yeah,
but that's the only time.
That was good. I did enjoy the dealing and the getting to know people and talking and things like that. But
well, I know
it gave me a really good insight as to what goes on the other side.
I know that you backed off a mutual friend of ours multiple times, so now you're gonna get to play around a golf with him. So that's
I'm looking forward to that. Yes, looking forward to that. And actually, he's, if it wasn't for being so well known, he does have really good game.
I'm sure he does. Thanks so much, Phantom, for sharing from your side. This was really cool, and enjoy that round of golf.
All right, thanks guys.
See ya.
Thank you.